bespoke radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
I need your help to get to the year 1985.
You're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Good evening. Fade to Black. Bespoke radio for the masses. Yeah, man. How you doing? How you doing? Today's Thursday, May 21st, 2020. We are live from a bunker somewhere in the middle of beautiful downtown Burbank, California, and I would like to welcome everybody listening all around the world, all across the United States, hither and thither, to and fro, back and forth, up and down, east and west, north and south, far and near. This is Fade to Black for KJCR, the Game Changer Network, and KGRA, the planets. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. What is cracking, everybody? How you doing? 142 days into the new year, only 224 days left. That's right. We are live from a bunker somewhere in the middle of beautiful downtown Burbank, California. For KJCR, the Game Changer Network, and KGRA, the planet, I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Oh, man. It's like this. My notes dropped from the screen, so that was improv. Yeah, you gotta like it. Tonight, we welcome very special guest. Linda Moulton Howe is here. She's here to present her coronavirus COVID-19 research, and this is our attempt to get shut down by all of the media platforms out there. Let's see how far they want to censor. That's right. That's what we're going to do tonight. I cannot wait for this. And Linda, not only is she the best, and her relationship with Fade to Black and the Fadernauts is just so cool. And everybody looks forward to her coming on the show. This is an important show tonight. Linda Moulton Howe. She is here to present her latest research into the coronavirus and COVID-19, its origins, its impact, and our future. Linda is a graduate of Stanford University with a master's degree in communication. She has devoted her documentary, film, television, radio career writing and reporting to productions concerning science, medicine, and the environment. Ms. Howe has received 3 regional Emmys, a national Emmy nomination, and a Station Peabody Award. Linda has Earthfiles.com. It is the reason to have the internet. Of course, she has appeared on Ancient Aliens since the first season, and her call just dropped, and we're bringing her back now. She has visited and traveled to Venezuela, Peru, Brazil, England, Norway, France, Switzerland, the Netherlands, Yugoslavia, Turkey, Ethiopia, Kenya, Egypt, Australia, Japan, Canada, Mexico, and the Yucatan and Puerto Rico. In addition to all of her traveling and research, every Wednesday evening, Linda is live on YouTube hanging out with her Earthfiles audience. I would like to welcome back to Fade to Black, Linda Moulton Howe. Linda, good evening. How you doing?
Hey, Jimmy. It's good to be with you and to wish everybody in Fade to Black and the Earthfiles world the most positive safety from COVID It's like we're in a completely different planet now, isn't it?
Yes, we are. And for there's so many things going on in and around what coronavirus is and what it's doing to this planet, COVID-19. And one of the side things with that, before we get started, Linda, is the censorship that has been tied to reporting on coronavirus and COVID-19. We've seen channels removed, podcasts removed, voices removed, doctors censored. Is YouTube, Linda, in your opinion, are they too big to care, right? Are they too big to fail?
Well, it is a good question now, because a lot of us feel that YouTube and Facebook and Twitter and all of them, as there's been an evolution of criticism to them for allowing things either political or racist or whatever has been the color of controversy, and that they are so big that the idea of having fairness from them, that's what everybody hopes. That's what I think that we always thought, that we would end up with an internet and a web that was fair and sort of in the whole idea of what once upon a time this country and everybody in it, we lived of, by, and for the people. And that has, it seems to me, there's been such an evolution and a change in that, and that now the large corporations, including YouTube, they aren't functioning for you or me. They're functioning for huge, huge corporate profit structures. And so whatever comes along as the latest menu of problems, it just sort of gets like a video gets taken down. A website gets taken down, and things now just disappear.
Yeah, and there was a quote. I'm not going to single this person out, but there was a head of state last month that said in public, Facebook and Google have more power than most world governments.
Yes, I think that is true because there is so much influence there. And one of the big questions that is behind everything that you're asking, how do we know what the truth is anymore? And one of those issues that came with COVID was, were we getting facts out of China? Were we getting facts out of, and that the Chinese government was suppressing? And as we started realizing that we were in something very serious, there were all kinds of undocumented, no vetting, all kinds of conspiracy stuff that started going out on the web, and nobody knew what's true, what isn't true, who is behind it, what is happening, and that apparently, that was the impetus for some of the editorial decisions that were made. Now, today, well, I got it today. It was yesterday's date of May 20th. It's Bloomberg News. And the headline, China's new outbreak shows signs the virus could be changing. This is really, really an important story. But we haven't been hearing much about this either yet. And when I got this, it was from a friend who sent me the Bloomberg URL. And I'm reading it and realizing you read all these pages, and it is the implication that in northeast China, COVID could be mutating. And is it mutating and causing longer time, this is what they're saying, longer time of the virus in bodies asymptomatic, longer than before, then longer to test negative after there have been symptoms and the people have been sick. A whole huge extension in time inside of a human body, asymptomatic, then symptoms, and then a long time to go negative. What is that about? So now, if we are at a point where we're coming out in the United States what if there is some kind of mutation that is going on in northeastern China, and we could have a second wave that comes with a coronavirus that has even more and different impacts? This has never been a more important time for us to know facts and science and medicine, and it's all been sort of chopped up in the swirl that you are addressing. How do we know what is the truth on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter?
And combine all of that, which as important as it is, and then we have the statements coming out from all of the social media platforms, and certainly with the mass media, in that if you go against the WHO, we are going to block your information. And which is saying that we are being forced a single point of view and no other research, theories, or opinions matter. That's the exact opposite of what freedoms we have fought for, right?
Well, you'd think so. The World Health Organization, though, when I think back, because I was doing a lot of news coverage and interviewing virologists and all kinds of medical people when SARS hit and then came H1, and I felt that the World Health Organization and the CDC then, we're going back to 2002 to 2003 with SARS, and that's a very important comparison because COVID is SARS-CoV-2. It is closest to that coronavirus that came, what is that now, 18 years ago. And they didn't come up with a vaccine for SARS, and they didn't come up with a vaccine for the next coronavirus, MERS. And now we are seeing headlines, like, for example, the one that sent the stock market rising, I think it was on Monday, was Moderna's announcement that they're now going to work with development. They think it will be in months. It will be astounding if this happens. But they're basing what is called an little m, like in Mary, RNA, like we have RNA and DNA in our genetic makeup.
Right.
And they are coming at this with this brand new approach. And the mRNA technology delivers bits of the coronavirus's genes into human cells, literally. And the goal is for the cells to begin making a viral protein that then the human immune system would recognize as foreign. And then the body would build defenses against that protein. And then we would be in a world where if all of that worked like that, we would have a vaccine. Maybe it would last for a year. We might have to get a vaccine every year. That none of that is known. The thing about the mRNA is that it can be made more simply. It can be produced in a larger capacity, and we're talking about 7.6 billion people in this planet. And we're talking about a coronavirus that every professional I've talked to has said the same thing. We cannot underestimate this coronavirus. It keeps doing things that we don't expect and we don't understand. And so if let's say that Moderna, there's going to be 100, I think there's 100 different groups that are now trying to work on a vaccine. Mm-hmm. That's fantastic because this coronavirus is really, truly dangerous. And it's dangerous from babies and infants to grade school to teenage, 20s, 30s, all the way. This is not what they first said, oh, it's only people over 55 who have to be concerned. And the inflammatory syndrome that they're comparing to Kawasaki, mm-hmm. that only showed up in, we'll say, significant cases in the United States and in England just about 4 to 6 weeks ago. So this coronavirus, who knows how many more facets it has, and one of the probably the most ominous things to keep in front of your mind is that this fall, if it reproduces what happened in the 1918 pandemic 100 years ago, the fall will be worse than what we've gone through. And when you then put all of this out on a table, and we're dealing with a coronavirus in which right now there's almost a desperation to come up with a vaccine, here is the reality that you get a vaccine, but you've got to be able to make 1 billion doses at a time. Mm-hmm. How long would it take to get 1 billion doses of a vaccine? If it takes 6 months to a year, how long does it take to manufacture? And we're in so many unknowns up against the next, let's say, 6 months, 12 months, 24 months. Some people say 36. That's 1, 2, and 3 years.
What do we do? We have so much to talk about tonight, Linda, and we're going to explore so many different aspects of this. But one of the things that is out front with this is we still have to go back to work, right? We can't put the entire planet on pause for 3 years or there's going to be nobody left. Do we just continue on with our lives?
Yeah, we are beginning to open up, but this is the one thing that, at least I think that most decent human beings, that they want to help protect you, me, them, parents, children. Everybody has a universe around them that they want to be healthy and safe. And the one area that has been proven now over and over, if you will wear a mask the whole time you are out, whether you're just going to the store, you never go without a mask on. And having sunglasses even helps protect the eyes. The eyes are clearly one of the routes for the coronavirus entering the human body. It isn't just cough and breathing in. It's eyes and the touching into the mouth. And therefore, for example, I got rubber gloves early on, masks, because I've done so much medical production in my life. I saw this really clearly as being something I just felt this at the end of February. This is going to be terrible. And I have been wearing yellow or rubber gloves, a good mask, and glasses and a hat, and a raincoat. It can be the flimsiest plastic, but the whole idea is whenever you go to the store or go to the bank or whatever you're doing or going to, if some people are going to an office, a lot of people I know, they're now staying and doing everything in their home office, that you think about in a strange sort of way that you, every time you go out, you're kind of like a soldier, that you've got to protect yourself in order to protect the people that you love and to protect the people around you. And that means accepting for at least the next 6 months, 12 months, maybe longer, that masks and hats and glasses and gloves and putting some kind of plastic around your clothes, that's the whole idea. And when I come home, I put everything on, the hat, the glasses, the mask, the gloves, my shoes, and the raincoat. I put all of it on a table that then they bake in the sun until I need to go out again. And it is a new way of thinking, but if we all did that with everything that we were doing, and knowing that that mask is important not just for helping keep from breathing in some particles, even though the coronavirus is 1/20,000th of a millimeter. It is at the electron microscope range, and that means unless you have an N95 respirator-type mask, you're really not filtering out those little particles until you get to the very sophisticated masks. But what you are doing is you are filtering out the moisture molecules in the air that COVID ride on. And that's where the universities that have been showing those laser cough exercises to show that if you cough at X amount of pressure, it'll go out in 2 seconds, it goes out 3 feet, and then they go out by 20 seconds, it's out at 6.5 feet or something like that. Mm-hmm. The masks help cut down that explosion or those moisture particles that COVID is riding on. So even if you're filtering out all of the particles, you are doing two things. You're keeping yourself from breathing in the larger atmosphere moisture particles, mm-hmm. and you are protecting the people around you everywhere you go from your own breathing out if you were contaminated by COVID and you didn't know it, which is one of the most insidious parts of this whole pandemic. We are dealing with a coronavirus that can be inside of people some people think it's been 4 to 6 weeks. No symptoms. And during those 4 to 6 weeks, that person is spreading the coronavirus. And if every one of the people who are asymptomatic had on masks, it probably could cut down the exposure and transfer and disease tremendously. I think there was a percentage today on one of the news shows where they're trying to estimate if everybody were wearing masks, how much percentage of disease could be potentially cut down. And I think this is so important from just a straightforward, practical compassion for my fellow humans, and then knowing that you want to protect yourself. Wearing masks, it should be just as straightforward and understood how important it is as drinking water every day. We need to be wearing masks.
Now, what do we do with those out there that are going to say, Linda, the masks, the covering of the clothes, none of this matters to me. What matters to me is I've got to feed my family. I've got to get out there. And if I get infected or if anything happens, that's on me. But I've got to take care of my family, and enough is enough. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen.
Taking care of your family and going to work does not exclude the importance. In fact, it increases the importance of having a hat and glasses and mask and gloves, because you want to survive. You don't want to get this darn thing. And so if going to work, if you have to physically go to work and you wear gloves and you wear a mask and you wear glasses and a hat, how does that interfere with your going to work?
It's an interesting view of the future, and how long do we have to maintain that kind of paradigm shift where this is something that we have to consider?
Till we have a vaccine. If we get a vaccine that will stop this coronavirus in its tracks, and then we can get the vaccine out to the whole world, then we humans, we have controlled the insidious COVID-19. Right. Until we have a vaccine, there will be no guarantee that there will not be waves after waves after waves of this. And see, it is so unknown yet. It's almost like we have to get to October and see what happens October, November, December, mm-hmm. because we've never, no human on planet Earth in the 20th to the 21st century has experienced having influenza virus circulating in the same air with something as insidious and potentially lethal as COVID-19. And they will both be in the air around this planet as we go forward. And when we get to the October to November, December, January dates in the United States, that's classic flu season. So we're going to have flu mixed with COVID, and that's coming. Now, I did an interview with Professor Jay Coe, who is a cellular neurobiologist at the University of Pittsburgh in Pennsylvania. I've done 2 interviews with him. He's extremely refreshing to talk to. No politics, it's all straight facts. And he said something interesting. He said, there is a possibility. No one knows. They all stress. No one knows. All they can do is think and hypothesize. There is a possibility that the circulation of the influenza virus and the coronavirus together, depending upon what humans are doing to protect themselves, it might be that the coronavirus is not as active and aggressive as it has been in the first wave. But we don't know. There's nobody who knows what is going to happen. And the very fact that this headline, China's new outbreak, shows signs the virus could be changing. And this is in northeastern, it's not in Wuhan, this is in northeastern China. It's in 3 city areas, Shulan, Jilin, and Shenyang. And there are 100 million people that have been put back. This is a renewed lockdown in just the last few days there.
Yeah.
So now, that to me is holding up that we have to be prepared psychologically that over the next year we may have to go into lockdown again, but not to throw in the towel or get depressed, but to think about this, that we are fellow human beings who are trying to save each other and the people that we love, and that when and if the current opening up, we start seeing these flares like what China is dealing with right now, we double up putting alcohol or whatever you're using on our hands constantly and wearing the mask and the glasses and not looking at it as an imposition, but being grateful that we have some tools that do work and that do help protect while we're waiting out the science to get us to a vaccine. That's the way I look at it.
When we come back, we're going to take a break right here. But one of the things, and I want to really go deep on this when we come back, one of the things that is so fascinating about coronavirus, and again, I'm not a doctor, and I can only read the various reports that are going on out there that are all different, and you just kind of meet somewhere in the middle with everything, and hopefully you've learned something. But what the feeling that I get, Linda, is although there doesn't appear to be a brain or a central nervous system, this thing is built to survive and to adapt and apparently to do some thinking to stay ahead of the game. And when I get my mind into thinking that way, am I far off the mark?
Coronaviruses and pandemics, or coronaviruses and viruses, they have been around ever since there was literature 5,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago about the plagues. The plague is a pandemic. The plague, a microbe that has the ability to get into a human body and then spread rapidly into a lot of other human bodies that have absolutely no immunity to that new microbe, that is a plague. And the plague definition, it takes out a tremendous percentage of the population, up to, let's say, up to 50 to 60%. And then that plague microbe has defeated itself. This has been going on for centuries. Once you start getting a population that develops immunity and antibodies, that is the we'll call it the self-destruction or the end of the microbe. And in this instance, this one has seemed to be so strangely insidious to the point that its entry into the human body has been through it's ACE. Those are letters that stand for long, complicated words, too. And the simple thing is, in the body, we have receptors that relate to metabolism and blood pressure and things in the body. And the one thing that this COVID has the ability to do is to take those long spikes, they're made of protein, and at the end of those spikes that you see on the coronavirus illustrations in the electron microscope, at the end there is a sugar molecule at the end of each of those protein spikes. And each of those protein sugars are different, and they kind of shake and jiggle. And that sets up two interesting things. The COVID is made in some way, the RNA programming of the COVID aims for that ACE2 receptor. Normally, the body, the human body, would be our programming would be saying to the makers of the antibodies, you have to make something that looks like that thing there, that enemy, and you have to then be able to surround it and destroy it. That's the way antibodies help us stay healthy. Well, when it comes to COVID, it has those spikes, it has those jiggling sugar molecules, and what they have found with the electron microscope images, that the dear human antibodies trying to figure out what this thing is so that they can kill it, the antibodies come up to the spiked COVID and they get stuck. They get stuck right in those protein spikes.
Well, let's take, Linda, I got to jump in and take a break right here. So,
all right, when we come back, I'll tell you what happened.
Exactly. Our guest tonight, Linda Moulton Howe. I am your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black. You can follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. You can follow Linda on Twitter at Earthfiles. Tonight, all of Linda's coronavirus research, all of the latest stuff is being presented right here on Fade to Black. I want you to stay with me. We'll be right back after this short break. Stay with us. Welcome back, Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Linda Moulton Howe is here. Now, if you ever miss a live broadcast like tonight's show, just get our podcast. Go to jimmychurchradio.com, click on the podcast banner, and it's just $2 per month. We've got over 1,200 shows archived right there for you, like this one with Linda. And Linda, you know, I say it every night. The reason to get our podcast is all of our excellent conversations you and I have had over the years. That's the reason to get the podcast right there. Okay, now right before the break,
right?
I brought up this coronavirus seems to be intelligent. It doesn't have a brain, but it's staying out in front of our best efforts to get in front of it. It knows how to dodge a bullet. And you brought up, the protein spikes with the different sugars on the end, where it is figuring out a way to survive and best attach itself to us in various parts of our bodies. How does this happen?
It appears to be. Remember, it's RNA and it's coded, and those protein spines surround all of that RNA code is in the sphere. And these protein spikes come out with the sugars on the end. And our antibodies, what they are expected to do is look at shapes. If we understood what's going on in our bodies all of the time, our antibodies are looking for anything that is so-called an enemy, and they look for shapes. And when they see a shape, they try to mirror the shape so that the antibody can come, absorb what is the enemy, and destroy it. Well, now we've got this COVID, coronavirus, and you've got the antibodies that are getting up around it, and they are getting stuck. And they have seen on the electron microscope that there can be so many human antibodies stuck in and hooked on to these, inside of these spikes, clogs up the spines, and then it ends up confusing the antibody process of what shape are they supposed to be identifying and mirroring as an enemy. It's a very, very complex process at this point, and it can spin out of control because the antibodies in our human body can get confused about all of these clogged spines on COVID, and what are the spines clogged with? Antibodies. So you end up with this ironic situation where our own antibodies will start attacking our own antibodies because of this confusion around what is this enemy of the COVID. And this may be what is behind what is now of great concern of babies, children, and teenagers. This is a brand new thing that's evolved in for reports like the last 6 to 8 weeks. And one of the dramatic stories about this was in the New York Times on Monday, and it was under a headline, "Straight Up Fire in His Veins. Teen battles this new syndrome that's being compared to Kawasaki," and the dramatic photographs that show the bright red tongues and the red eyes and the red fingers and the red toes and inflammation all over the bodies of these children. It's been even in newborns. And in this guy, Jack, he's from Queens. And here is a quote. "His resting heart rate was 165 beats a minute, twice as high as normal, as his heart struggled to compensate for his alarmingly low blood pressure, which was hampering its ability to circulate blood and supply his vital organs with oxygen. This condition is a form of heart failure called cardiogenic shock, and Jack's was severe. The doctor, Stephen Kearney, chief of pediatric critical care medicine at the hospital in Columbia University, said, overall, his heart was not working well. It wasn't pumping as strongly as normal. The doctors could not explain why this 14-year-old, otherwise strong guy, his heart function had suddenly become impaired. Its structure and rhythm were normal, but the blood vessels, and this is the key, the blood vessels throughout his entire body were inflamed. It is a condition called vasculitis, and what happens is that the muscles around the vessels could not control the blood flow. The inflammation is taking over the entire arterial and venous system. And after about 10 days of this, they were able, with a whole series of things, trying to deal with, if you can think about this, Jimmy, that your whole arterial venous system would be inflamed. And that was the headline. The 14-year-old said it felt like he had, quote, straight up fire in his veins. Now, this is part of the whole issue that I'm talking about, that what is the shape of the coronavirus that the antibodies in our human bodies have to deal with? And this particular COVID-19, with all of those protein spikes and the strange little sugar molecules at the end that shake, and the antibodies can't get a clear picture, a clear shape of what they're dealing with, and it can turn into this kind of attack of our bodies within themselves. And that may be what this syndrome that they've been comparing to Kawasaki might be. But it's COVID. It's COVID causing the antibodies to attack the antibodies.
How long will it take for us to not to build up immunities, but just to learn how to fight back?
Well, I think it is happening. The interviews of the doctors that they have had who were in the trenches 6-8 weeks ago, the horror of it in New York, and the nurses that were on, and the doctors that were on, and they were basically saying, we've never seen anything like this. We don't know what to do. At first they thought, remember, that they needed all the ventilators, and then they found that the ventilators did not help as much, and there is one particular piece of evidence that was found at an MRI that I've always thought might be an insight about why they switched in some people from ventilators to just putting high amounts of pure oxygen through tubes, and they found that worked, and turning people onto their stomach, that helped more than being on the ventilators. There was a woman, she worked in an airline. This goes back about 2.5 months ago. And at work, she collapsed. She didn't know anything. Her mind was completely gone, except she could tell them her first name. And when they did an MRI, they found that there were swellings in dark places from the area that goes up the nose through the sinuses, where you have tissue in the brain that has to do with your sense of smell, and they have found that there's inflammation there, that COVID can go right through the sinuses, right up into the part of the brain that affects your ability to smell. And above that is the medulla and the pons. These are two areas of the brain. And what is one of their most important functions? The control of signals to the muscles that make the rib cage of bodies go in and out. And why do they go in and out? It's so that the lungs will be expanded and contracted, which allows us to breathe and live. Suddenly, seeing the MRI with the swelling and the damage, there was literal physical damage to the brain tissue in the medulla and the pons. It might explain that there is brain damage that is causing an interference with the muscles, and that's why a ventilator might work with some people and might not with others, because there's literal brain damage of interfering with the signals that every human needs to breathe naturally. So those are the kinds of pieces on the chessboard that we're beginning to see, that COVID is going into the brain, it's going into organs, it isn't just going into lungs, it is a whole body system. And now we have a case like this teenager where it went throughout the entire circulatory blood system and causing terrible inflammation. And that means this thing has coding in the RNA that allows it to come up to the ACE2 receptors with those spikes and that sugar molecule, and that it has a very, and some of the medical people would say it is a very unique and special ability to use the ACE2 receptor in the human body to get into cells. Is that a natural evolution? Could it have happened from the horseshoe bats and their interaction with pangolins? There are papers that are saying that the gene sequencing is by far the closest to the bat, and the bat into the pangolin, excluding the possibility of like something was made in a lab and maybe got loose. And other people will argue, no, it's too adapted to that ACE2 receptor. And that's one of the arguments that may go on to the end of time. And to me, we have to deal with this, and we have to know we're on a planet where these kinds of plagues, ancient pandemics now, have happened will continue to happen as long as, and Jimmy, this is the other part of the world that needs, I think, to, I started to say, re-educate itself, and what I'm going to is the wet markets. All of those wet markets in China with all of these kinds of creatures thrown into piles and that people are eating them. That is what sets up the ability for something like coronaviruses, which live in the gut of the bats. The coronaviruses are there. That's where they are. And the fact that they can come out of a bat, maybe go into a pangolin that the Chinese get the scales from and eat parts of, and then jump into a human, that's what the vast evidence seems to indicate. That's how all of this happened, and this is not the first time. Same thing in 1918 and others. But this one, as you're saying, it seems so adapted. It seems so perfectly adapted for getting into the human ACE2 receptor, and then it seems to be able to move its way through the human body in the most insidious ways, and that's when we say, God, it feels like it's plotting. It feels like it's calculating, but it is RNA wrapped up in a circle that has all these protein spines on it, and it is not a thinking creature, but it is viruses. I can't remember, there's 20,000, 50,000, 100,000 viruses. And these strange Twilight Zone things have been on this planet with us apparently from near the beginning, and they have paralleled with the evolution of organic life, and they are not living, and this seems to be the one defining difference between why are viruses not considered to be life. The definition of a living organism is self-replication. The virus, the coronavirus, cannot self-replicate. It must get inside of some sort of a system like DNA and RNA and then take it over to replicate itself. Why does that happen? You have to go back far in time. But that's how weird it is. That something that's not even life can get inside of life and take it over and replicate and cause. Would you say it's fair to say it took only 4 months to change the entire world, perhaps forever?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting how our minds and the way that we go about our days in the future is going to be different. I'm living differently now, and I feel different, and I'm just like everybody else. There's another part of this, though, and I want to get back to the vaccines, too, as well. That's too important not to discuss. But viruses have been around forever, and surely man, Homo sapien, modern man, has been living with them side by side on this planet, and we've managed to get to where we are today with them. Is there a need for vaccines, or are we just going to be fine if we just are just careful?
Well, I'll give you a personal experience of being a child that I remember this like it happened yesterday. When my brother and I were growing up in Boise, Idaho, polio was crippling children right and left. Mm-hmm. And my mom and my dad were just terrified that we would get polio and become crippled. And it was such an ever-present in our house. And when during the summer, Dad would make sure that we had to have naps at a certain time, and there was a huge thing about trying to do anything to avoid getting polio. And I don't know the number now of how many children were crippled for life, but it was huge. And then came the Salk and Sabine. One was oral and one was a shot. And when those, I think of like a miracle, because we live with this fear that it was so palpable that we would get polio and be crippled forever, that when those vaccines were announced, it was like, I still can feel this joy of my parents and getting us to get the, one of them, I can't remember it, I think it was the shot first, and then later on it was the oral. And it was like this huge thing was lifted off of our lives. That's where we are now. If we can get a vaccine against this insidious COVID-19, it will be a lifting off from the world like it was to my brother and me about polio. And the vaccine, the reason why vaccines work is because, and when you've been reading about the ones that they're in trials now and how Moderna, and now I think there's another one, I think there's 100 different groups that are trying to come up with a vaccine as fast as possible. They have to have something that will provoke the body to build defenses against the coronavirus. And that means that they will do tests and tests to see if what they're going to put in a proposed vaccine will provoke the antibody production in the body. That's what you need, and you need it to happen safely, because there are a lot of things that can go haywire when you are mucking around with the antibody and the possibility of some sort of an inflammatory or immune response, and that's why these are not easy to do. But today in the New York Times, they had hopes rising for a vaccine within months, not years. That would have seemed impossible. We still don't have a vaccine for SARS. We don't have a vaccine for MERS. We don't have a vaccine for Ebola. And what what the hope is that the Moderna vaccine, even if it was only 8 people in their first phase, they did see that what they put in, I think it was a shot, it did provoke strong immune system building of antibodies without any side effects. And so now Moderna is running to do 600 people in the next, I believe it's 30 days or so. And then they want to go to thousands of people in as early as July using the same ingredients, because that's why they do phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. If it works in 1, you go to 2. If it works in 2, you go to 3. Well, think about this. If they get up to thousands of people in July and they are provoking antibodies and people are remaining healthy and there are no side effects, wow, it could be that we would have at least the prototype of an effective vaccine. But then we're at where we started this discussion in the beginning. There's 7.6 billion people on this planet, and every part of the planet has been affected so far by COVID. So to breathe easy, so to speak, on the earth, you would have to get vaccinations out in a huge percentage of the world's population, and that's why you're up into 1 billion or more doses. And how long does that take? I don't know if anybody has an answer to that yet, but we might be close to an effective vaccine. And the doctors make this point also in this article. There cannot be just one vaccine. If that were to happen, the company that made it would have no chance of meeting the world's demand. And that makes sense to me. And so that whatever the approach is going to be that is medically sound, they're going to have many companies be producing it to get it out. Once we know that a certain percentage of the world has been vaccinated, that's when you wouldn't have to be thinking about masks and glasses and hats and all of that. But will that happen within 12 months, 18 months? So you can see why, even on this fast track, you're not going to have the world be safe again until there is large vaccination, and that's going to take a lot of effort.
Let's take our break right here. Our guest tonight, Linda Moulton Howe. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. We're discussing the coronavirus and all of Linda's research into coronavirus and COVID-19. We will continue after this short break. This is Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network and KGRA, The Planet. Stay with us. Welcome back. Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Hello to everybody listening all around the world. This is Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network and KGRA, The Planet. Our guest tonight, Linda Moulton Howe. We're discussing all of her latest research into coronavirus and COVID-19. Before the break, we were talking about vaccines, Linda, and I want to start here in that there is so much opposition that has been built up against the vaccine idea that I'm not sure that anybody would take the vaccine. How, and that includes myself, how do we make sure that the vaccines are pure, clean, and free of all of the chemicals and everything else that are polluting vaccines and creating all of the concern today?
I have been getting a flu vaccine every year of my life since I was a teenager. I have worked for UNICEF and different companies around the world, going into places like in Ethiopia. I did a film for UNICEF called New Hope in Child Survival, and they called me in and said, Linda, there's a new strain of cholera in Addis Ababa, and we'd like to send you there. Their doctors from Harvard are going to be there, and we'd like to do a film on New Hope in Child Survival during a time when there is a new cholera strain. And I had to have, I think, I can't even remember now, 6 or 7 different shots over 2 or 3 days. Those are vaccines. Vaccines are not always 100% effective. You have shots that, like for yellow fever, that you're hoping that it will help boost your body's ability to recognize. I'm saying that I have traveled the world. I have done films. I have been around cholera. I have had Harvard doctors say, treat your hands and your feet like an enemy and not eat. Literally made a film for 2 weeks in which for 9 hours we did not eat any food anywhere or drink anywhere because it was not safe. And when you have that kind of background, my respect for hard medicine and vaccines is enormous. And coming back, the polio was a horrible disease. It was just awful. And it was this miraculous, incredible breakthrough. Those vaccines ended polio in the world. There may be resurgences now because I personally think that the anti-vaxxer point of view is completely wrong. for the reasons that vaccines are there to help us and protect us, not to hurt us, and that I'm living proof. I have had so many vaccines and needles in my work for decades, and I think that I have survived well because I had the shots. And even getting a flu shot every single year doesn't mean that I won't get the flu, because you can get it. We don't have a perfect vaccine that matches. And why? Because influenza, which is on the DNA side, coronavirus is on the RNA side, influenza changes all of the time. It's extremely changeable. The coronavirus is not quite as changeable, maybe a lot less changeable. It's another one of the differences in characteristics. Well, that's why you have to get a vaccine for the flu every single fall, because it keeps changing. And some of those mutations, like Hong Kong flu in '68, I remember that I had that, and I'd had shots. It was horrible, and a lot of people died from Hong Kong. So I cannot say more strongly that getting children vaccinated and continuing to have flu shots is a very important part of living a healthy life.
And and like I said, the opposition, and I've been following this in the media, and the way that I think the media is reporting this, I very rarely say this, is actually pretty accurate. That the opposition to vaccination worldwide is there, and that's a huge hurdle to overcome. Next is this, is that the thought of a new world order-ish environment where if you don't get, the vaccines are going to be mandatory. You don't get vaccinated, then you're not going to get a vaccination card. You're not going to get a job. You're not going to be able to work. You're not going to be able to do this. And this is part of a control mechanism for the planet. Now, I'm not saying that this may be the case, but there are a lot of people on this planet that are looking at this from only this perspective. How do we overcome that?
I would say to anyone who is making that argument, do you have a mother and a father that you love? Do you have a wife or a husband that you love? Do you have children that you love? The whole point of all of this is to try to perpetuate human life, not kill it. And vaccines are the way to stop COVID. And right now, the fact that we've got I think I'm not overstating, I'm pretty sure, here it is. This is in the New York Times today. More than 100 research teams around the world are now taking aim at this virus from multiple angles, meaning to come up with vaccines. 100. And this may make the difference, whether it's going to be Moderna or somebody else. We've got a lot of very smart, brilliant minds. And what is the motivation? The motivation is to save human lives. And that is the way I look at everything. Because the coronavirus, if it were allowed to go through the population without anybody putting on masks, I think that Dr. Fauci and Sanjay Gupta and Osterholm at the University of Wisconsin, they've all said the same thing. The so-called herd, H-E-R-D, herd immunity, that was what Boris Johnson in London at first, before he got sick, he had said, well, let's just let everybody get sick. We'll get herd immunity. It'll all be over. And remember when the number of deaths were climbing in England every day at such a staggering rate that it was shocking, and then he got sick and was hospitalized and might have died, and everybody then realized, including him, this is lethal. And the lethality of COVID-19 is what is provoking the energy to come up with a vaccine that would essentially save the world. On the other side of a vaccine also is more freedom, not less. If we get a good vaccine and a good, huge percentage of the population can be vaccinated, then we don't need to wear masks and glasses or anything else until we're hit with another pandemic, maybe in another 100 years. And by then, maybe we'll have bases on Mars and all over the place, and they'll have a new way to eradicate. But meanwhile, right now, at this decade of the 21st century, if we can get a good vaccine, Jimmy, it will be freedom for the world.
There's two arguments that are going on right now across the country that directly conflict with each other. And let me state both, and then I want your response. You have one side that says the mask and the shutdown and everything was not worth it. The deaths and the infections aren't high enough for us to ruin the economy. The flip side of that is going to be, that argument is there, that it could have been much, 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 much worse. We were predicting 1 million deaths, and we were predicting 100,000 infections. All of that was prevented because of the lockdown. The two cannot coexist. Right, and that is what we are facing. So, one would say the reason why everything is so low is because we went through the lockdown, right? Yeah. And you can't have an argument on both sides and have them both be right. And this is what is messing with everybody's minds. Everybody wants to fight about this because they're on one side of this or the other and not looking at the big picture as to what is really going on. I myself, I don't have a clue. But I do see this line in the sand with everybody fighting each other over this when their arguments are going against what the other side is saying.
I think you and everybody who would make those words that you just said, you should hold up in front of you the lens of polio. You should go back and read what was happening in the 1950s and the 1960s with polio. You should look at the photographs of what happened to thousands and thousands of children. It was horrible. The vaccines totally stopped it. And that is what people should be focusing on and educating themselves about. Instead of having this be political arguments, read, study academic medical material. Read about vaccines and what they do and how they help us.
Yeah, and
that's what people should be doing. Read and concentrate on learning about polio. And COVID in its own strange way is as bad because it's killing people fast when it infects. And it isn't confined to an age group. It is the bell-shaped curve. And now with the added inflammation that they have found in the babies and the toddlers and up through teens, like the guy with the fire in his veins, and this is not something we've ever dealt with before. And in fact, I know that one of the things that doctors have stressed, there's no one on planet Earth who had any immunity whatsoever 5 months ago to COVID-19. Think about that. That's a true statement.
Well, and the flip side of that is by going into lockdown, and this makes a lot of sense to me, Linda. By going into lockdown, we are preventing ourselves from the possibility of building up an immunity.
Well, you mean not getting sick and dying?
Well,
that's what you mean.
Well,
okay. One of the things that they are trying to point out also about the vaccine is critical, and that because we are such a naive population, that is a medical term, naive, N-A-I-V-E, that is when the body has absolutely no exposure to what is hitting us. It's called a period of naive. There's no immunity. That's why there can be such a high death rate. And one of the quotes today concerning this hopes rising for a vaccine, quote, almost everyone on the planet is vulnerable to this new coronavirus. And so each person may need 2 doses of a new vaccine to receive protective immunity. And if that were the case, and we wanted to completely help every living person on the planet, get this. This is a quote. That's 16 billion doses.
Yeah, I know. And this is what I'm very nervous about is giving up certain fundamental rights and freedoms. And I'm not opposed to, I want to be very clear here, I'm not opposed to vaccines. What I'm opposed to is taking away somebody's rights, whether they want to take the vaccine or not. Just like the flu vaccine that you're talking about each year, right? Your flu shots. People have a choice to take it or not. A lot of people die from the flu, but that's a choice, and people are willing to take that risk. Controlling people over this and making things mandatory, I'm not with that. That doesn't mean I wouldn't take the vaccine.
Johnny, Jimmy, come back to that question that I was posing, and I'm serious. For me, this is the only lens that counts. Are there people that you love and you want them to live? COVID is not a walk in the park. And when you hear them say, well, the percentage of deaths is maybe 3.4%, that's still 3.4% too many.
Yeah, you're right about that. You're right. And here's a crazy statement. I'm just going to say it as bluntly as I can. You have taken a flu vaccine every year, right?
Yeah.
I have not. I've never had a flu vaccine in my life. Never. And let me tell you why. When I was probably 18 years old. I'm working for a big corporation. Flu vaccines are coming in, right? And everybody can go down to the cafeteria and get your free flu shot. And my boss goes, man, every year I take that flu shot, and I get sicker from the flu than I do from the flu shot than I do from the flu. And that freaked me out. And I've
never been sick from a flu shot in my life.
Well, I'm just saying that's what he said to me, right? And it's just something that I didn't want to experience. But here I am, 56, never had a flu shot. I think I don't remember ever getting the flu. I might have maybe gotten it once. I don't know. Maybe it was a bad cold. Not sure. But I've never had a flu shot. And that's my choice that I have made. That's all that I'm saying. You know, coronavirus may be the roughest thing out there, and people need to take note about what's going on. No question about it. And it's mutating. There's no question about it. And it's affecting the planet. No question about it. But if we go into this mandatory situation, that's where people are going to stand up and go, wait a minute here. And I just don't think we need any more problems, you know, and any more fear thrown into the fear pile. And,
well, let me put another pawn on our chess game here. When you get up to 331 million people is, I believe, the last census number for the population in the United States, 331 million, 1.5 billion in China, and around the world, huge human populations. There is what I consider it to be the demarcation line of compassion. That when you are dealing with huge populations and plagues and potential, and look at how many we have had, 20 in 2002, when SARS hit, I remember I was interviewing virologists and people, and they were really terrified that this was going to be what coronavirus is now. They thought that was going to take off and it was going to be global. And then it settled down and it was lethal, but it was not very contagious. And then MERS was even more lethal, and it wasn't as contagious. H1N1, Ebola, they each one, the world thought, the medical community thought, oh God, this could be the one that's going to take the planet. Now we are living with the reality of a coronavirus that has taken the whole planet. And what was the body count today? Was it 4 million?
We are currently at 5,194,000.
Okay. More than 5 million human beings that were alive 5 months ago or so.
No, that's infections. That's infections.
Oh, infections. So what is the death rate?
330. Yeah, 300. Yeah, the numbers just are too crazy. 334,621
for the world.
Yes.
Okay, so there were approximately nearly 400,000 people that 5 months ago were alive that are now dead.
Yep.
And I, at least the way I'm put together, the demarcation line of compassion for your fellow human beings is that you put on rules and controls and lockdowns and everything you can do to get through an attack like this coronavirus. Looking at every rule, you must wear a mask, you must have glasses, you must do this. It's for you and your fellow man. That to me is my natural instinct is that. Then if you get the vaccines that work and everybody gets vaccinated, then you can be free again until something else happens where every human becomes a threat to another human's life. That's what we're going through. And that is something we have never experienced. But that, to me, says that calls for strictness. This calls for discipline. This calls for trying to get everybody to understand that wearing a mask is a two-way street. And I love my fellow humans, and I don't want people to die because they're arguing over whether or not wearing a mask is losing some control over their independence. The idea is look at it as this is a really strong tool to save all of us.
Yeah, it's and one of the things. We're going to take a break here in just a second, Linda. When we come back, I'm going to change gears. I want to talk about Brazil and Mage.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so we're going to come back and do that. I'll say this, and I truly mean this. When we stopped covering coronavirus 2 months ago on this show, right? I didn't want to be a part of it. I didn't understand it. I wanted to let the media play it out. If somebody wanted information, they could go somewhere else and find it. Here, we're just going to do our thing. That in a couple of months, in a few months, when the smoke is cleared somewhat and we have a clearer understanding about what's going on, that I'll come back and visit this and talk about this because I'm not an expert.
Well, let's hope by then that we have a light at the end of the tunnel in a vaccine and that you will see the intelligence of getting a vaccine. Dear Jimmy Church, this will be your first vaccine, and it will be crucial.
And you know what? And we'll come back and we'll have that show. And it'll be a great one. Let's take a break right here. I want to say what's going on down there in Brazil. I've seen a couple. Is it Mage or Mage? You say tomato, I say tomato.
It's Portuguese, and the correct pronunciation is Mage.
Okay, Mage. Okay, so is that we have a situation here, and I started to see these comments, and you can save the giggle for later if you want. But I've seen the comments going, you know what? We have a Roswell situation going down in real time. We need to not have another Roswell here. And I stepped back and I thought, you know what? That actually makes a lot of sense. This is going down in real time, and it's an opportunity for us, you know, the UFO community and everything else, to make sure that we don't have another Roswell. Do you think those comparisons are fair?
Well, if you mean that counter intel moved in very quickly to cover up the crash of a craft and what I think are bodies, and they're not grays, they're different, that, yes, that's a parallel. There's much to talk about, and I do have an email that came to me this afternoon that I'll share for your reaction.
Let's take our break right here. Our guest tonight, Linda Moulton Howe. I am your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black. When we come back, we're going to discuss what is going on right now down in Brazil. We've got a serious UFO encounter, crash, and retrieval that has just happened over the last week. I'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. I am your host, Jimmy Church. What a great conversation tonight. Linda Moulton Howe. Linda, it's like this, Linda. You always bring your A game. We respect you for that, and thank you. And you and I have been talking about this show now for a couple of weeks, and I know how many people you were speaking to and interviewing and leading up to this, and I didn't ask any questions. I just wanted to learn something tonight and see what was going on. So thank you for that. And I know that you have got some inside info about Mage, and I like the way that you corrected me on that. Last week, let me back up if I may. Last week I think it was on Wednesday, when these videos started to show up on Twitter. And I was checking those out. I had a show Wednesday night, just like you do. And then I thought, wow, that's kind of strange. Okay, all right, this looks interesting. On Thursday morning, I got an email. You may have gotten the same one. I got an email from somebody that sent me the video of the meteorite, or whatever. I thought it was a meteorite, crashing into the side of the mountain. And I looked at the time stamp on it, and I went, okay, well, that was last night. That was going on in the middle of all of this other stuff that was going on above this town. That's a strange coincidence to have happened. After that, all hell broke loose, and something happened down there. And what do you think is going on?
Well, let me go. I've got opened up emails that I received on May 15th, and I reported Wednesday night. Just a minute, I want to make sure I'm giving this to you correctly.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, but I'm nearly positive it was Wednesday night, because Thursday we had open lines, and it was Thursday morning I got that video, and I talked about it Thursday night on the show.
Well, I got a call on May 14th, a phone call from Trajano Paiva in Brazil. He's a producer-director. It's called WPI Films Limited in a suburb outside of Rio de Janeiro, and he has met me, I think, at Contact or Conscious Life Expo in the past. And every once in a while he has sent me updates. And on May 14th, his email to me said, UFO in Mage, town near Rio de Janeiro, May 14th, 2020. Dear Linda, the event took place in the town of Mage on the night of May 14th. The video was made by the people that live there and published at YouTube. Also, they did record a radio conversation between the military that were in the operation for the recovery of the UFO wreckage. And here follows the links of the videos and a phone number for an English-Portuguese translator, Lisa Bick. Now, I called Trajano as I started reading what he had sent me in terms of the Portuguese to the English on the alleged hacked military conversation. And he said that he had learned that, in fact, that the event took place on the night of May 11th to 12th, 2020. And I called, at his suggestion, the Portuguese translator, Lisa Bick. And she allowed me to record her on Sunday, May 17th, as she translated for me a Portuguese transcript that Trajano had gotten, allegedly from the hacked military radio communication that came on a video that said in Portuguese, classified audio. Now, here is what the translation in the Portuguese, I have everything that he sent me, but this is what, these are the words. Start of communication by radio between the military team, bases 1, 2, 3, and 4. Radio noise. Base 4, confirm arrival at the station. Alcantara base confirms the damage of the object with an American shot. An American shot is in quotes. Confirm if it was shot down. Radio noise. Confirm position. Go to the location. You will need 3 or 4 teams. There are too much material to collect. You have to take the small road. By the small road, it's not possible to descend. And they have a discussion about bases and who's going to go. It's not very clear and distorted about, they are talking about clothes. Go with protection. Nobody is going to touch those things, exclamation point. These bodies are not humans, over. No way we can touch on these things. Confirm, he is talking about taking down a drone. Confirm if the equipment was taken down. Capture the equipment shot down. Drone also is to be taken to the base, over. The truck is going down by the small road, positive. Base 4, over. Go taking it slowly by parts till the factory, and there we will see what to do, like take the wreckage to a factory. It has to be taken with camouflage, over. Everything is smashed, damaged, and there is no way we can put it there. There are more bodies inside. I have never seen such a thing. This thing is not people. Do you copy base 2? Do not approach without proper clothes. Wait till it arrives. At the patio is protected, closed. Cover everything so nothing can be seen. Retrieve all cell phones from the guard. Did you copy? Do not allow anyone to record anything. Did you copy? I did copy base 2. Base 1. The American corporation from Alcantara is going to the base position and will retrieve the objects. Do you copy? It is to operate within the Aguia protocol. And I went to Google Translate and typed in Portuguese, AGUIA, and it came up as eagle. And of course, the United States has a strong, long, historic association with eagles. Now, that was the 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th. Here, today, actually, it was yesterday's date, but I got it today because I was doing my show last night and other things. So I saw this morning and printed it out. Tell me if you've received this. I would like to know if this is being distributed. Hello, I'm a military at the Armed Forces. I will bring updated information so that the entire Brazilian population can learn about the inexplicable events that occurred in the region and that all residents can have access to the truth of the facts that happened in the municipality of Mage near Rio de Janeiro. For distance, it is across Canberra Bay, and from Rio de Janeiro, you have to go around the bay. As the crow flies, it's not more than probably 20 straight miles from the city of Rio de Janeiro to Mage. Initially, I will draw a timeline so that everyone can understand what was going on. And this is what I received today, and the first date goes on April 20th. That would be a full month ago.
Now, let me jump in, Linda, and I want the audience to know that I got the same letter, and I read through it. What Linda is going to review now with all of you, I was pretty shocked. And
I am, yes,
yeah,
and
yeah.
I don't think that this is concocted, but I sure would like to understand if there's anybody out there listening. For Jimmy and for me, we would both like to get some kind of credible, provable military source that may or may not have some kind of photographs, documents that would back up what I'm now going to go through, because I would like to know feedback to Earthfiles.com and to Jimmy Church Radio on what I'm now going to read.
Yeah, and I want everybody to take note here that the tracking and the apparent knowledge of this started on April 20th, 2020. And
right, a month ago.
A month ago. And April 20th and 21st, these are two important dates that she's about to reveal, and then May 1st. So continue, Linda, with the April 20th line.
Yeah, and I'm glad to know that you received this, and to both the Earthfiles listeners who are listening tonight and to Jimmy Church, if there are people who have honest, actual, solid, evidentiary information about what I'm now going to report, please get in touch with us. And you can reach me by proton mail. I use that all the time with people who do not want to use email. On April 20th, 2020, military satellites in the United States detected a strong presence of unexplained aerial phenomena activities in some states of Brazil, such as Piranha, Sao Paulo, Minas Gerais, Amapá, I apologize if I'm not pronouncing that one correctly, and Rio de Janeiro. Next day, April 21, 2020, the United States Department of Defense, following international protocols determined by NATO, advised the Brazilian Ministry of Defense and the Brazilian Joint Chiefs of Staff of the Armed Forces, known as EMCFA, to intensify military air patrolling in the Rio de Janeiro region due to an increase in the activities of the phenomenon in that region. It was immediately determined by the EMCFA that military air patrolling be intensified in Rio de Janeiro with the support of the Brazilian Air Force FAB base of Santa Cruz -RJ Rio de Janeiro and the Navy Air Base of São Pedro da Aldeia -RJ. On May 1st, 2020, The radars of the first integrated air traffic control and air defense center detected strong activity from unknown aerial phenomena in Rio de Janeiro state in the cities of Araruma. These are very difficult for me.
Yes, they are. You're doing good,
I'll go
though.
by them.
You're doing good.
We can post this. There are cities that, if you are in Portuguese, you could pronounce. And in the metropolitan area, which was then informed to the Brazilian Airspace Defense Command. Acronyms are given. They are very long. On May 12, 2020, the Airspace Control Detachment of Pico de Couto in Petropolis, which I think is an area, a suburb in the Rio de Janeiro area, detected the increase of inexplicable activities in a very intense way in the region. At about 8 p.m. of that day, that same day, May 12th, this now matches up with Trajano making the correction to me, Jimmy, that the actual night events were May 11th, going past midnight into May 12th. That matches up here. On May 12th, 2020, the Airspace Control Detachment of Pico de Couto in Petropolis, which is part of Rio de Janeiro, detected the increase of inexplicable activities in a very intense way in the region. At about 8 p.m. of the same day, U.S. military reported to the Brazilian government that an UFO had fallen in a forest area in the municipality of Mage, which is across that water from Rio de Janeiro. The United States Department of Defense then ordered General John Raymond to deploy 20 Special Forces soldiers to that region, being 10 from the U.S. Space Force and 10 from the Space Aggressor 26 Squadron, commanded by Captain Barnes. In the early hours of May 13th, 2020, the U.S. military disembarked at a Brazilian military air base in the state of Sao Paulo and traveled in FAB planes to a military base in Rio de Janeiro. The operation was baptized with the code name Organ Range. That's O-R-G-A-N space Range, R-A-N-G-E. It is important to note that the Brazilian military personnel provided only logistical support. The U.S. military personnel informed us that visits of these objects to Earth have been more and more frequent in the world. When the U.S. military arrived at the place where the object had fallen, they verified that there were 3, in quotation marks and capitalized, intruders in the damaged ship. Then, at around 7 p.m., the U.S. military, armed with advanced technological devices unknown to the Brazilian military, intercepted and killed a being with humanoid characteristics of approximately 6 feet 6 inches tall in the region of Chácara dos Entre Rios.
In the municipality,
yeah. Into the next page, some of my typing is gone, and it says in the municipality of Guapimirim, which is another region around Rio de Janeiro, near the Soberbo, S-O-B-E-R-B-O River, and it gives coordinates. I was looking at them today at this latitude and longitude. What is interesting is that there is a town with farms not too far from this latitude and longitude that is given, and there also is what appears to be a small body of water there. The other 2 beings were captured wounded but alive in the region of Guapiac with a cedilla under the C-U, municipality of Cachoeiras,
de Macacu. Yeah.
De Macacu. All of
Yes.
this is in the Rio de Janeiro area, and there's more latitude, longitudes given. on May 14th, 2020, the beings, along with all their displacement devices, I have no idea, Jimmy, what that means. Displacement devices were transported to U.S. military bases. All U.S. military personnel have already left Brazil. Only Brazilian military helicopters are now patrolling the region. After this incident, there were no new significant reports of unexplained phenomena sightings in the region. Strong arm, helping hand, serve and protect, E.B. I hope in reading this, and apologize for not being able to do all of the Portuguese towns, but that what we need to know, is there anybody out there who actually has firsthand knowledge who would back up this transmission that the United States, acting, I suppose, as the superior controlling entity, killed one non-human and took two more and a craft, and the question would be where, and would this explain why in the earlier transmission to me from Trajano and through the English translator that we had the Agria name as being the operation, and that translates as eagle, and the eagle is associated most with the United States. So, Jimmy, I'm puzzled by this, and I would love to know more. And I wonder, too, have you ever seen that phrase, displacement devices? They're talking about ET technology.
Yeah, it caught my eye completely. And it's and again, the line says this. It says on May 14th, 2020, the beings, along with all of their displacement devices, were transported to U.S. military bases. Yeah. It's a very direct thing to say, right? It means something. But there are 3 or 4...
And these are 6.5 feet tall, humanoid characteristics, but not human.
And there are 3 or 4 specific dates here that are easy now to go back and research and get people to come forward with information. And that is April 20th, 2020, where it says that the United States detected strong presence of unexplained aerial phenomena activities in some states of Brazil. That's on April 20th. April 21st, 2020, the United States Department of Defense, following international protocol determined by NATO, advised the Brazilian military defense that something is going on. So we have those 2 specific dates. And then May 1st, the radars of the first integrated air traffic and air defense center, Sindatka 1, by the way, which is, again, an acronym that is specifically pointed out here, detected strong activity from unknown aerial phenomena in Rio de Janeiro. So these are 3 specific dates pointing out data that was collected. And I think that's very important here. That allows it. It isn't ambiguous, Linda. It is pinpointed.
No, this is not. This is so strong, and that's why I wonder, who is this person who signs it E.B. The implication is they are in the military and they have military first-hand knowledge, because that's what he says. Mm-hmm. I'm a military at the armed forces, which is a peculiar sentence. It is not the way an American would speak. So I have the emailer. It is a highly unusual name, but I'm not giving that out at this point. And I also, the dates that are important, because it was Trajano Paiva down in the Rio de Janeiro area who contacted me back on the 14th, who corrected the dates that he had been given for the video with the police sirens and the 18 objects in the sky as May 11th to May 12th, going past midnight. And here is May 12th in this list.
Now, I'll open up the phone lines after this. Linda, do you want to stay with us, or do you have work to go and do? I'll understand if you can't do overtime.
This is important.
Okay, then you're going to stay with us.
I'd love to hear what the comments would be, and we'd be on for another half hour.
Yeah, 25 minutes. But there is, and this is rare for us to go through, Linda, and I just love it, that these two specific GPS coordinates were included in this. Again, this isn't ambiguous stuff and left open to interpretation and things. No, it is very direct with all of the police, all of the air traffic control, the military of the United States. Their commanders are named here. How many people? It's a very, very comprehensive layout of what possibly went down there. It's impressive.
And Jimmy, this letter, it does echo because remember, this is totally separate. The letter came to you and me today. It's totally separate from all of the other stuff that was happening from May 14th on with Trajano.
Mm-hmm.
And it's Trajano who sent me what was allegedly the hacked military radio communication. And I have all of it that he sent. And I read those line items from that radio communication, and it echoes what's in this letter as well.
The
bodies, the craft, the military, they're worrying about that they can't go down a certain road. They're going to have camouflage. That they can't let anybody know. That everything has to be protected and covered. Remember, that's what I went through.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And the videos were amazing to watch. And the thing is, it wasn't one. You know, I personally, just like you, Linda, I don't know how many videos are out there, but I personally watched dozens. And I know I've heard reports that there were hundreds that were up, that were all pulled down. Something definitely happened. Did you, if you haven't seen it, I'll go ahead and forward you the video that was sent to me of this object crashing into the mountain. And it looks like a meteor, you know, like your typical space debris thing breaking up. And I dismissed it, right? I was just like, wow. And not that
remember Lincoln La Paz in 1947, 48, 49, 50, and that was the investigation of the Kelly Green, quote, meteorites, close quote, that Lincoln La Paz himself, a highly respected scientist who was an expert in meteors, he saw a green Kelly meteorite change from a straight line and came to the conclusion that whatever the so-called green meteorites were, they were intelligently controlled. That's Lincoln La Paz. It is a part of the history in the United States about what was being researched by a real scientist. And then it was like nobody wanted the public to understand that Lincoln La Paz came to the conclusion that these green fireballs were not just astronomical bodies.
Now, let's go ahead and take a break right here. This is Fade to Black. We're going to go into some overtime with Linda Moulton Howe. I will open up the phone lines as we discuss further this Mage. Somebody said Braswell instead of Brazil. It's our Braswell. Linda, you stay right.
Hey, that's good.
That's great. And we'll be right back, and we'll take your phone calls next. Stay with us. Welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Linda Moulton Howe. She never stops. She's going into overtime with us right now. We're discussing the Mage Brazil UFO story that is, it's going down now, right now in real time. And Linda, before we get to the calls, one of the things that I did, and I normally don't have the time to go and do this kind of thing, but I started to go and click on some of these things that were there, and I was finding them deleted and removed. I was like, holy crap, these reports are actually real. that these videos, some of the stuff on Twitter, some of the stuff in Reddit, Facebook, the reports that were coming out were getting deleted off of social media. Were you finding the same thing happening to you?
Yeah, in fact, when Trajano called me on May 14th, he said, I'm going to be sending you links. And he said, get them down on your desktop as fast as possible because they're being taken down from YouTube and any place that they are appearing. And one of the best is the 50 seconds that I showed last night on my Earthfiles YouTube broadcast. And that was in a video that I got down onto my desktop as soon as Trajano had called me on the 14th. It was gone by that night.
Absolutely. Yeah. This stuff was really happening to me, too, as well. And the first thing that you don't want to do if you want to have a story go away is you don't delete it. All you're going to do is raise suspicions. I don't understand that process of it. It was pretty interesting. Let's go to the calls. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Say hi to Linda Moulton Howe. Who's calling?
Hi.
Hey, Jimmy, how you doing?
Hey.
Linda, how you doing?
Hi. Where are you?
Jimmy?
Hey, JT is driving a truck, Linda. he's one of
what town?
he's one of those great truckers in the United States that is making sure that we stay alive. Thank you for everything that you do, JT.
Yeah.
What's your question for Linda about Brazil?
Just the tone of the voices. I mean, those people were so intense, about it and stuff like that. I mean, I haven't seen a lot of videos on it because, I sleep a lot during the day and all that with driving at night here. But anyway, I mean, it's just crazy how they did that. I mean, I was just wondering how she...
well, I think Jimmy made the point that there are too many disparate videos that we don't always know who, where, the time, all the things that we should know as journalists. But if it's not provided, what we can look at is the variety. And there definitely is, I think, that 50-second piece where the sirens are going and the 18 objects are moving in the sky. I understand that people are throwing out the accusation it must be drones. And I have been looking at professional drone videos where you can have a controller within 2 miles of drones and you can do shows. When I watch the shows, I'm talking about these videos that are showing what drones can do, glowing and moving in the sky and doing patterns. When I look at what is being done professionally with drones, and then I go back to that 50-second video in which the 18 are very liquid. It's very, what do you want to call it? There is something about the motion of those 18 objects and the way they move that seems very much more fluid than when you look at what drones are doing at a county fair. They're more stilted. They're more in square patterns. Do you know what I mean, Jimmy?
I do. I do. I saw that.
That Mage is much more organic somehow. And even though we don't understand, to me, I said to Trajano, why do we not have the eyewitnesses of the cell phones on somebody's recording doing an interview? And I don't know what has happened in the whole context of Mage for a month, but it seems as if the lack of having people standing with their face and their name suggests that people were afraid to go on the record.
And the panic in some of the videos, and some of them were in English, some of them were in Portuguese. I don't understand what's being said there, but I could hear the back and forth, and I can hear the people in the background that were absolutely terrified because they were watching this go down in real time above their city. It was fascinating viewing for sure. Let's go back to the phones. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling?
Hey, this is Mike from Savannah, Georgia.
Hey, Mike. Say hi to Linda Moulton Howe. What's your question about Brazil?
Hey, Linda. Hey, Jimmy. Hey, my question
Mike.
is, when you were reading those transmissions, you mentioned an American corporation. Hello, are you there?
Yeah. No, I was just wondering. What? Okay, yeah. Hold on.
When she read the transmission, it said take the items to the American corporation, or the American corporation is going to help. I would like to know the name.
Yeah. Hold on for a second. What's that, Linda?
It's Alcantara. The American corporation listed in the hacked military radio was ALCANTARA. I haven't looked that up. Go ahead and talk, and I'll look it up right now.
Yeah. Well, what I also found interesting is that I believe, and I posted this. Let me actually go back here for a second. I posted the death of the colonel that was ahead of the Space Force, and he died in Colorado last week. And his name was Thomas Falzarano. And I went back, and the listing of the two guys from, and I'm looking it up here. You just have to be patient. This email that Linda and I got is pretty long, but they list the two guys from the United States. Oh yeah. Then ordered General John Raymond to deploy. As far as Captain Barnes was the Space Aggressor 26th Squadron, commanded by Captain Barnes. And I think there was a second name here too as well. And I wondered if it was connected to Linda, the death of Falzarano, which happened on May 13th in Colorado Springs. Yeah,
I see what you're bringing up. I'm also amazed that I've looked up the Alcantara group, Steadfast for Mindanao, founded in the mid-50s, was born out to tap Mindanao's vast and undeveloped resources in the Philippines. Okay, so that's one Alcantara group. It has an incredibly beautiful website. It's really amazing, actually. So now if you go back, that was Alcantara Group Steadfast for Mindanao, Philippines. Now there's another one, Support Companies, ACR Mining Corporation, established in 1962, Alcantara Group, and it seems to self-reference back to the Alcantara Group with Mindanao. So now we're talking about mining, we're talking about major corporate work that this second to the last line in the hacked military radio communication. Base 1, the American corporation from Alcantara is going to the base position and will retrieve the object that you copied. What would be better for retrieving than a large mining corporation?
Now, was it Alcantara where the cars were outside of the gate and you can hear what sounds like either artillery fire, big gunshots that are going off?
That's the implication.
Yeah.
That's exactly the implication. Yeah, I saw that too with all the smoke, and asked Trajano, can you find out, can you get anybody who can even go there and ask as what was this about, show them the cell phone. And nobody had done that yet, but the implication is that this corporation, Alcantara, is where they were taking the retrieved object or using it to get it there, and who knows what all of those booming sounds were about.
Yeah. Caller, what was your name?
Mike.
Hey, Mike, thank you for the phone call, man, and enjoy the rest of your night and weekend. Go back, Lee Tappy.
You also.
You got it.
Go back, Lee Tappy.
You got it. Go back, Lee Tappy. And, Linda, crazy. And before I get back to the next caller here, do you think that it's possible, Linda, that with the data that has been presented, not only the video evidence, eyewitness testimony, these letters, the radio transmissions that were transcribed, do you think that this is enough information for us to start to unravel this and maybe get somebody from Brazil or the United States government to come out and talk about it?
Well, I think that we need somebody who was there and actually witnessed and can prove it, who is willing to talk with us, show us their video, that they are the ones who took it, and that they go on the record as being at least an eyewitness. What time, what date, where were they in Mage, what was the scuttlebutt on the street, because we haven't gotten that from anybody anywhere. That is another weird part of this story. There is no active eyewitness interview like for news.
Yeah, very interesting. That's a very interesting part about this. And the media coverage on this, which I've read as much as I can, but we're talking about, and this is the media reporting this, thousands of witnesses. Right, not a couple of people, not Linda and Jimmy out doing a sky watch. Right, it's not two people out on a fishing trip in a swamp. It is taking place over this town Mage, Rio de Janeiro, and thousands of witnesses and lots of video that has been presented. Absolutely incredible, and I agree with everybody, Linda. This is our opportunity to get out in front of this before the cover-up takes its hold. And
what we need are people willing to stand up, be honest, have some sort of evidentiary material, and be willing to help us who would like to report the facts and the truth. If there were literally thousands of witnesses, why do we not have a single one recorded in a news interview?
Let's go to the next caller. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Say hi to Linda Moulton Howe. Who's calling?
This is Andrew. I'm calling from Miami, Florida. How you doing, Linda? Jimmy, how are you, sir?
Yeah, it's good to hear your voice. What's your question about Brazil?
It's not a question. It's actually I don't know if that it helps, but the state of, I've heard Linda say the state of Amapá, Minas Gerais, São Paulo, Rio de Janeiro, all those states lined up going from north to south. So she actually mentioned that these objects were traveling in a straight line. And so those four states lined up from south to north. I don't know if that information helps, but seems like if it is.
Are you from Brazil?
Yes, sir. I'm from Brazil.
And have you talked to anybody from Brazil?
No, in fact, no media coverage from the main media in Brazil. I have seen this Northern Journal. In fact, it's actually surprising to me that I actually hear these from you guys. But yeah, I just wanted to give you that piece of information. All those four states lined up from north to south.
Oh, thank you for that. And what was your name again? I'm sorry, I didn't catch it.
Andrea, in fact, I sent you 14 pages of calculations between quantum mechanics and general relativity. I talked to you about 2 years ago.
Yeah, I remember I remember everything, Andre.
I guess you couldn't remember this, but I did. I study physics, and I sent you those 14 pages of calculations. It's been a while ago, but I just wanted to give you that piece of information. I don't know if that helps or not.
Yeah, okay. I appreciate that, Andre. Seriously, and actually. This phone call is more important than you think. But do me a favor, Andre. Resend me all of that physics material. Will you do that?
Oh, I'll have to dig in. I'll try my best. I got a lot of it. Okay.
Andre.
Great show. Thank you.
Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your night and your weekend, and go back Litapi.
Go back Litapi. Pleasure to talk to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Linda, what he said, I don't even think he realizes how important what he said.
The 4 states. The 4 states lining up.
Yeah, of course. No, I'm talking about the media not reporting this.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that was making the point that I was just saying before he came on the line, exactly that. There has been no recorded interviews. It doesn't make sense unless there has been a clampdown on the media in Rio de Janeiro, because otherwise everything that is circulating around this story, there would have been phone calls to their TV stations. And there would have been efforts to go out. If there have been 1,000 witnesses, why are we not getting people on the record with their names, with their iPhones, talking about everything that occurred? The silence around this, to me, is like one of those indirect pieces of evidence that somebody is trying to shut this down. And I hope that tonight that there are people listening who may actually have hard evidence, hard military insight into this letter that Jimmy and I got. We need help from people who are not afraid and who can get us as much information as possible that is based on fact and evidence, and that if there are people who are going to hear about this show tonight that are in Rio de Janeiro or Mage or that surrounding area, if they can get in touch with us through email, with me through Proton Mail is encrypted, that we need first-hand provable witnesses, evidence, iPhones, that the person who took the video can prove the iPhone and the video is theirs. That's another part that we've got to go through. And then there's another step that I do. I work with some people who are professional analyzers of video and images. And if a video holds up and it hasn't been edited and it hasn't been chopped up and it is raw iPhone and it shows whatever we have had an insight about the lights moving in patterns. Some people are attacking, it must be organized drones. Are there cell phone images out there that would have anything to do with military operations on those roads around Mage to the company that may be an American corporation associated with Alcantara? And that is the question that Jimmy and I have. Are those explosions, the white smoke, is that an Alcantara office or Alcantara, or is it military? We need help with the details.
The video that shows this object crashing into the side of the mountain, and it lights up the mountain. It's crazy. That is not a drone. That is clearly something coming in and breaking apart and crashing into the mountain. I got time for one more phone call. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling? You're live. 3. Oh, that's my bad. That's my bad. I almost hung up on some. Oh, man. Okay. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling? 3.
Hello?
Yes, you're live. You're live right now. Okay. Yeah.
Are you there?
Yes.
Hello, this is Rhea.
Hi, Rhea. Say hi to Linda.
Hi, Rhea.
Hi, Linda. Holy cow. I can't believe I made it on.
Yes, you did, Rhea. Really quick, before we end, you're our last call of the show. What's your question for Linda?
Okay. So I had an experience listening to one of your videos where my body was taken over and I turned into a robot. My head was flipped back and I was tinkered with, and it sounded like machinery. And that happened while one of your Antarctica videos was on the air, running in the background. I was already in a channel.
Do you have a life of missing time? And
hold on.
Have you heard of anything like that before?
Yeah, I'm sorry about that, Rhea. Linda had a question about, did you have any missing time? Linda, I don't think she can hear you.
Have you had missing time, and do you consider yourself an abductee? And that's something
so I did not miss time. It was a very fast experience. I experienced myself turning into this other form, but I was also still myself freaking out for being taken over, and I started to almost choke on having my head flipped back. As I fought with them, I heard one of them say, "Oh my God, she's awake."
Okay, Rhea, I'll
just say really fast.
Yeah.
It could be a symbol, it could be a number of something that was triggered inside of you. That does happen with people in the abduction syndrome.
Yeah, and when this happens, it's triggered, right? And something was brought out because of what she was listening with you. That's all. It was just triggered at that moment.
That there was something in my documentary that she's seeing. It could be a symbol, it could be a shape, it could be something that triggers something implanted, not necessarily physical, mentally implanted by other intelligences on a previous abduction. And then people will be triggered. It can be a light, it can be an image, it can be a number, it can be a symbol, and then they leave their consciousness, their immediate surroundings. And the issue is why? Why do the other intelligences leave these trigger points in some people? Certainly not all, but a few. And she sounds like that could be that category.
Yeah, and Rhea, thank you for the phone call. Enjoy your weekend and go back Tappy. And she said one other thing, Linda, before I let you go. She said that she had heard them say she's awake.
Right.
Yeah, which means it was physical.
I've had... maybe in my career, I've interviewed about 1,600 people in the abduction syndrome, and there will be maybe half a dozen that is one of the things that people will recall, is that they get it telepathically, she or he is awake. That comes into their head.
Linda, thank you so much. What a great conversation tonight, and it's always so much fun when you're on with us. Really quick, before we say goodnight, where can everybody go and hang out with you on your live stream?
Oh, thank you. Come to Earthfiles. It's www.earthfiles.com. Always think of a reporter who files news about the Earth. And when you are on my news page at www.earthfiles.com, at the top is a photograph of me with my cats, Chocolate and Fluffy, that I bring with me at the beginning of each Wednesday night live stream Earthfiles YouTube broadcast. We keep growing. We've gone through the 141,000 mark now. I'm headed to 150,000, Jimmy. You'll have to join us when we get there, and we're going to do a champagne party around the world with everybody raising their glasses to Earthfiles and my, I guess, persistence to wanting to be able to report the truth, the real truth, the whole truth about our past, our present, and our future. And thank you, Jimmy, because you're working on the same goal.
Yeah, thank you, Linda. Champagne, live stream, Linda, YouTube, I'm there. Okay. I'll talk to you later. Have a great night and be safe out there and enjoy your weekend.
Yes, and down with COVID, everybody. And wear masks. Wear masks.
Linda,
love you guys.
Love you back, Linda. Linda Moulton Howe, Earthfiles, and the links for Linda are over at jimmychurchradio.com. With that, we just went pole to pole with Linda Moulton Howe, and I've got to get out of here and get these credits rolled. Thank you so much, Linda. Fade to Black's executive producer is Rita Camurian. The show is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee, Dennis, and Kevin. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vitoa, Mark D. Kovar, Webmaster Drew the Geek, music Doug Aldrich, intro Spaceboy, spaceboymusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network, and syndication is KGRA, The Planet. This broadcast is only copyrighted 2020 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. I hope everybody has an amazing night and a great, safe, fun weekend. We'll see you on Monday. Go back, Lee Tepe.